Why, hello everyone, Mr. Cyber here, coming to you today with a show regarding near-death experiences. This is a very fascinating topic because near-death experiences have been going on for centuries. And a lot of people have reported dying and leaving their body. And this is just an absolute amazing phenomenon. Whether or not these are real or made up by the brain, people do insist that this is very real, and it's actually more real than you being in the now. And I've had the luxury of talking to Anna, who had a near-death experience. She is a scientist, and her take on this completely changed her life for actually the better. And a lot of near-death experiences, people actually talk about seeing the light, a tunnel, meeting relatives, spiritual beings, angels, even Jesus. And there are individuals who unfortunately experience hellish near-death experiences where they see demons and they go to a place of utter misery. And in those cases, a lot of those experiences change their perspective of life. So this is a very fascinating topic, whether this is the mind playing tricks towards the end of death, or if this is real. So we're going to talk to Anna, who's a scientist now, and she's going to give her take on what she believes. So sit back and listen to this short interview, and let me know of what you think about this, because this is very fascinating indeed. So Anna Lee, correct?
Or just Anna's fine.
Oh, Anna. So
yeah.
So what got you interested in near-death experiences? That's what I'm curious about.
I had one.
You had one. So what's the whole backstory on that?
I guess like my backstory was just I was a hot mess, and it was in 2017, so it wasn't that long ago. And let's see, how old was I? Oh my God, what's wrong with me? I was like 38, I guess. And I was just a hot drunk mess. Like I was not in a good place, and I had like a chemotherapy situation the 2 years prior, and then I had my daughter, like Lucy, who's now just turned 6 the other day, and like I had just gotten really in a funk, and that being sick from the chemo, I couldn't work, so I like was just in a really bad, like, not working, just a drunk loser basically. I'm not even gonna lie, and no motivation and going nowhere. And then I ended up like having like like I had this problem with, like reproductive organs, and I had to get a surgery done. Mm-hmm. And I came home from the hospital, and I hemorrhaged, and like I didn't know what, like, I mean, I knew something was very wrong, but I didn't know like how wrong it was. And I was being ornery and stubborn, and I told my ex-husband like, that I would be fine or whatever. And I just remember like being in the bathroom and like being in the tub, I guess. And yeah, I was in the tub. And that like I felt this sensation come over my body that later on, a couple years later, while I was teaching my biology class to my students, and I'm teaching them cellular respiration, it dawned on me what I felt that moment. And I like stood there in front of my class and like had this moment where they had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, oh my God, that's what that feeling was. Which was like my cells releasing all the ATP at once to try to keep me alive. Like I felt it, like every cell in my body. Yeah. Like pushing to keep me, here. And then I just wasn't there anymore. I was up on the ceiling, like looking down, and saw myself and saw my ex-husband, and said in my head, or what, in my mind, shit, that sucks.
Now,
And
I'm
then
sorry,
I
go
heard,
ahead.
nope. Oh, I'm sorry. Then I heard someone tell me, like in my mind's ear, I guess you'd say, the word nope, like nope. And then I got pushed back into my body, and it physically hurt. Like it felt like someone punched me as hard as they could in the gut, like right at the sternum, base of the sternum, to where when I came to, I gasped for air, like as if someone had been holding my head underwater, and like at that last second where I couldn't take it anymore, I finally like reached the surface. I had to gasp for air, and that's how I came back. And that was it. Yeah. So it was, if it wasn't for that coming back part, like I probably would have thought it was just a dream or hallucination,
So a quick question for you. Before this even happened, did you believe in near-death experiences, or have you heard about them?
I'm a scientist. I've been a scientist like my whole adult life. So I worked in neural engineering. So for, the Department of Defense and DARPA. So I have an understanding of the brain, and I thought it was just, processes like shutting down, like I thought it was the cells dying and creating some kind of illusion in your mind. Yeah.
So another question that's usually comes up. So I'm pretty sure you've had a very vivid dream before. I think we all have.
Yeah.
When you wake up from a dream, even though it's very vivid, it's a dream versus being awake. When you had this experience, did it feel, how can I explain this? Did it feel?
No, it wasn't a dream. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I understand it wasn't a dream, but did the consciousness, did it feel more real than the real world that we live in?
Right. Okay. So that's an interesting question. I was angry with myself when I came back for not asking about my kids, like I knew immediately that I had left my body. Like I knew that I had been near death or had died. And it was just a knowing that I had. I didn't even have to question it. It wasn't like a discussion. I was like, did I just thought, I didn't ask, anyone. And it was this, like I was very profoundly upset with myself for not being more conscientious about my children, like who was going to take care of my kids,
Yeah.
But at that moment, like thinking back on it now and like really thinking about it for years now, I realized that like, because it was okay, everything was all right. Like I was totally fine. And like, I knew everything else was going to be fine, like somehow there was just like an understanding that it was good.
So did this experience, well, before I go to that, when you were looking down from the ceiling, and the reason I ask this is because my father also had this similar type of experience. But when this happened, did you see anything like what they talk about, a tunnel, anything interesting?
Nope, not at all. I saw myself, and I can tell you that I didn't have legs or arms or anything like that. Like it was
just all spiritual.
Like my mind, like just my my consciousness, I guess you'd say, because like there was no, you can tell where where your arms and legs are, right? Like there was no sensation of that, at all. So, but yeah, like I didn't see anything like that. I just heard a voice in my head tell me that it was like, no, just go back. Like it was a no. But with that one word, I understood that meant it's not my time. I need to go back and get your life together.
Wow.
Like that.
Wow.
Yeah. That was and I woke up allergic to alcohol. So
wow.
Well, I mean, it came back allergic. So I could not drink alcohol. I still cannot to this day. I don't want to. I have zero desire. And I was like a drunk. I was drinking like 2 12-packs a day.
Yeah.
And just drowning my sorrows out, like being a total lush loser. And that changed. Like everything about my life changed. Like all of it. Like just, I'm motivated. I just finished my master's. I'm working on my PhD in metaphysical studies now. And I started teaching right after that, and everything's about being in service to other people. Like I'm to help other people. Like I never cared about that before.
So you actually had a good, so this experience that you had actually had a positive influence in your life afterwards.
Yeah, no, it's literally, I feel like what happened is, that it was I was being called up to get like kind of karmically bitch slapped. Like, girl, you're so far lost right now. You need to get it together. And like, this is a reset. That's what I feel like happened.
Interesting. Wow. You actually got me goosebumps right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's, it's been like, now I'm just like, I don't know. I had no, like everything. I can't even describe like if you talk to people that know me, they're just like really, it's kind of uncomfortable for me because they're like, God, you're so different. Like all the time saying,
oh yeah,
how proud they are. Like, and it's just like, okay, great. I know I was a mess. God, Jesus Christ. You don't have to keep bringing it up.
So,
because like it was a bad time. Like it was a really bad time for me. I was in a really bad way.
So with this happening to you, it's kind of a 2-question part. So with this experience, the first question I have is the medical side. Do you now believe consciousness and the soul is separate from the body?
Yes.
And and the other one is, do you think there is life after death?
Yeah. So both of those things I think are true. And I really didn't have I did have an opinion because science,
science always wants to tell you one thing, because science is evidence-based.
Yeah. So that's the problem. But the problem with science being evidence-based is that when we don't know something, we say that it's not true or it doesn't exist instead of just saying we don't know.
Exactly.
And I find that frustrating. But yeah, like I grew up in a really religious house, but like at age 8, I was like, you guys are dumb. Like, I can't handle this. Like, you guys are so hypocritical. I don't want any part of it. And I stopped going. Like, I just refused to go. And so I've not been a religious person my whole life, but I've always been kind of, I guess, spiritual, but not religious.
Yeah.
But it's always been incongruent. So this has been a fight within myself for decades where I'm like, I'm a scientist, but at the same time, I have these interests that are like more metaphysical, and those things are incongruent. And so it's like an internal struggle that I've been having. And this kind of set that aside for me where I was just like, you know what? We just don't know everything. Like,
well, you know
we're
what?
Ignorant.
So it comes down, at least in my opinion, and you probably think the same thing, when you just look up in the sky or you look all around you, did this really just happen? No
doubt. Like, I tell my students all the time, I'm like, listen, look at how intricate life is. Like, look at everything. Like, you really think this is some random how did it just came out of nothing? Just poof, one day it's here. Like, come on, like that. How does that make sense? Like, it doesn't.
Because doesn't science teach something can't come from nothing?
But yes, we do. But at the same time, we then teach about Big Bang. So it's like, it's so, and that's a problem. And I have students that ask me about that all the time, and I can't get I can't really talk about it. And it's one of those constraints that I have in my job, which is frustrating because I want to,
I know,
kind of, but I can't because that would be impeding on parenting, I guess, from other people. So I don't want to piss any parents off, but it's ridiculous. Like,
yeah, I would hate that feeling because you want to, relay all this information, but you're stuck in a catch-22 situation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've had students, though, I will facilitate conversation if a student brings it up.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, I'll be like, oh, really? What do you think about that? Who else has,
Well, if a student brings it up, just talk their head off.
They do. I let them. My classes are pretty open like that, where I want to hear my students' thoughts because, and to be real, like teaching science, it's like you're always hoping that you're going to inspire somebody to be the next, big scientist that discovers the next awesome thing. And I mean, that's like a dream come true, I think, for any science teacher, like the prospect of that. So I always like to hear how my students think and, kind of hear them kind of, talk out, their thought processes. So to see like where they're at and like how they're using their critical thinking skills and such. And when they bring it up, I all for that. I just sit back and go, okay, popcorn, let's do this, but I've never told my students about like the dying thing. You know, I haven't.
Well, of course, yeah.
Talked about that, but you know, it was definitely an experience that was interesting. But like I'm telling you that, you know, if you're familiar with biology, if you remember biology class, that you know, cellular respiration, when we, you know, how we process all the energy, you know, in the body. I was teaching cellular respiration. It's like the hardest thing to teach in science. And I was up in front of the classroom, my first year teaching. And it was like a couple months after I did my near-death experience. And I was talking about how I said, yeah, like if we release all the glucose, if our cells release all the ATP molecules at once in our bodies, we would shine brighter than the sun and we would scorch everything around us for like a 500-mile radius. And I don't remember where I had read that, but I'd read it somewhere in, like, I don't know how they determined it to be true. Who knows if it's true, right? But it was an interesting thing, and I shared it with my students. And at that moment, my brain just went, oh my God, that was that feeling you had.
Wow.
Where it was like this, like, it was like, I felt like I was going to kind of explode from the inside out. Like everything got tense and like there was a pressure building. And it was like, I felt like I was going to pop. Like, I don't know how else to put it. And I realized like, oh my, that's what I was feeling. I was feeling all of my cells trying to keep me alive by releasing those reserves of our, you know, adenosine triphosphate molecule. Like that's what was happening. And it was a moment of real, like, dawned on me in front of my class, of course, you know.
Yeah.
And I just stood there and was like, oh my God, that's what it was. And my students were like, what, Miss Stone? You know, and I couldn't even answer them because I would just have that epiphany, you know, and I had to process it in my head for a second. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, nothing. Let's continue. And, but it was a really weird moment for me, actually, because
so
I'm 100% that's what it was.
So I have one last quick question, and you may have had this as well. You know when you're on the verge of falling asleep and you feel like you fall?
Oh, yeah, the sleep jerk. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Is that what it felt like when you popped out of your body, or is that a different sensation?
No, like, you mean when I left, or when I left the first time? That was instantaneous. I don't know how to say it. Like, it was like I felt like I was going to explode, like I said, and it felt like I just couldn't take, like, it as it kept building, that pressure, like I was going to pop, kept building. It got to the point where I was like, oh God, I can't handle it. And as soon as I thought that to myself, I was no longer in my body.
Wow.
Like, so I know I wasn't dead yet. Like, I know that I wasn't yet dead. Like, I was aware of that. I was aware that I was like dying because I had to have my blood transfusion afterwards. I lost more than half of my blood supply. So, I was, you know, not in a good way when the ambulance came. So, it was, yeah, like it was instant, and it was, I like looked at myself and was like, yeah, shit, that sucks. Like, that's the only thing I said. That's the only thought I had. But yeah, no lights, no tunnels, no angels, no demons, no parts, nothing like that. Just,
well, that's an absolutely amazing story, though. You know, even something like that is enough to change somebody's perspective in life. It
was enough. I didn't need to see that. I knew that it just wasn't the right time, and that things needed to change in my life. And I like I said, I can't drink alcohol. Like, I literally cannot drink it. I tried afterwards, and I would just throw up. It would just foam in my mouth. Like, it would just become undrinkable. Like, the second I would try to sip it. And I'm so grateful for that, because that was a bad thing for me. Like, drinking was terrible, and you know, people ruin their lives with that stuff. So, and I was there. I was doing it. So I'm grateful for the experience. It was a bit scary. It was definitely, I was scared, like, afterwards, you know. I was like, holy, you know, wow.
Well, you know, if it happens again,
more times.
Well, if it happens again, you know what to expect.
yeah, no, I'm not scared now. Like, now I'm like, okay, cool. I know it's going to like, I know what to expect, I guess. But after, when I was in the hospital, it started to happen again 2 more times, like, where I started to leave, but I didn't, like, I just pulled myself back.
Wow.
Down, like, I don't know how to put it.
You're like, nope, not like, yet. Nope.
Yeah, that's verbatim what I said, what you just said. You just literally quoted me. Literally, that's what I said. I was like, nope, my kids, like, you know, no way. But yeah, it's definitely, it was peaceful and cool, and I definitely think there has to be something else. I mean, we don't, energy can't be created or destroyed, right? You teach our kids a lot. Conservation of energy, and we can't escape that alleged scientific law, right? So where do we go when we die, right? Like, our thoughts are electrical. Our thoughts are, neural impulses that are electrical and measurable. So that goes somewhere.
That's absolutely amazing. Well, I appreciate you very much for telling your story. That's just,
sure. Yeah, no problem.
And the reason we like this is, I think you can agree with the same thing, is people need to hear these stories. Because there are people out there like you who are afraid or don't want to talk about it because, they might be laughed at or not believed in, which is understandable, but
I guess I don't like I probably at a younger age I would have cared, but at 42 and what I've that's that happened. You can't. Nobody's going to tell me it didn't. And you can take it or leave it. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything.
Exactly.
That's just what happened to me, and it changed my life in a good way, and for my kids in a good way. They got their mom back. Like, they, you know what I mean? Like, it benefited a lot, and now I'm helping people. Like, now I'm a good teacher. Like, I care. I'm I'm very present. I'm very involved with everything I do, and I'm all about helping kids that are dealing with trauma and things like that. Like, that's become like my life's mission, and to pay it forward, and that's I wouldn't have. I don't believe I would be this way if I didn't have that. So I don't care if people believe me or not. I don't care if people think I'm crazy. I care less. It's not about that. It's about taking experiences that happen to you and turning them into positive, whatever they may be. And this one was the kind of epitome of experiences.
Wow.
So,
well,
I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm back, and I figure if I'm back, it's for a reason, and I'm going to make the most of it.
Exactly. See, having that positive attitude is what you should have.
Right. It's hard sometimes, but it definitely does work.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your story. Is there anything else you wanted to say, or was that?
No, I would just say if people are scared to talk about it, seriously, I think people put too much emphasis on what other people think in that regard. Just do, if you have a near-death experience and you're back, then you clearly have a reason that you're here.
Yeah.
And you need to find what that is and fulfill it,
Exactly. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been an awesome listening experience. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. So going back to what Anna said about her near-death experience, it had a huge, profound change in her life. And at the time, she really did not want to talk about it because she was afraid of the stigma behind it and what people would think. And now that she's a little bit older, she realizes the importance of getting her message out there. And I appreciate her telling her story. It's for you to judge what you believe. If you've had an experience like this or know anybody, I would love to talk to you or hear from you about your near-death experience or your out-of-body experience. Because I know a lot of people have these, and they're just, how can I say this? They just don't like talking about it because of the stigma behind it. But I think more people need to know about this and the positive aspects that can come out of these experiences, such as Anna's, because her life completely changed from hard times. Then she had this experience. Now all these positive changes have occurred afterwards. So I think it's a very, very important thing to discuss. But if you would like to speak to me, leave a comment below, and I would love to hear from you on any stories that you may have, or if there's any specific topic you would like to talk about. Leave a comment below, and we will have you on a future show. But thanks for tuning in to this episode number 1 on the near-death experience, and we will talk to you all soon. For now, I am Cyber, and I will talk to you all later. Peace.